Welcome back. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and every week we bring you news and information you can use on your real estate transactions. If you've got a question for us, give us a call, 844-788-9444. You can also call in with your questions. We talk about lots of different things, and sometimes it brings a story to your mind. So if you want to share it with us, call us at 844-788-9444. Today we've got a really exciting show we're going to continue on with. It's mold, meth, and marijuana. That's what we're talking about today. And really what prompted all this is because, there are a lot of investors out there who purchase properties. We have a lot of investors around Houston who purchase properties and rent them out. And sometimes if your tenants are misusing the property for a meth lab or growing marijuana in them, it can have some issues for you, the landlord. And so that's what we're talking about today. This segment of the show, we're talking about mold issues. So I've brought in a mold expert from AQ Testing Services. Linda Lauver's here, and she's got a construction background, and she's certified by the Texas Department of State Health Services. She's a licensed mold assessment consultant in Texas since 2005. She's been a mold consultant for 15 years and an expert witness in mold legal cases. So she's got a lot of great information for us today. So Linda, we got a lot to talk about. So let's start with just a property that someone's renting out. If they suspect mold is in it, how do they test to find out if there's mold? What should they do?
Well, have a mold inspection where the consultant goes in and looks for any signs of past or present water penetration. They take moisture readings and take some air samples to determine if there are high levels of mold in the house.
And there doesn't have to be water damage to be mold, right?
No, they're high humidity. If the humidity reaches 65%, mold starts to grow. You can have big mold issues that are really not visible because with high humidity, it's just a fine layer, but it tends to grow in textiles and on drywall, but it's not very obvious. But it's very dangerous and it's very expensive to clean up.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about marijuana. People grow marijuana in the home. How does that affect the structure of the property?
Well, it's grown with high humidity, so they have a lot of heat, they have high humidity. The drywall in the house absorbs that humidity and mold starts to grow. So the house is really a petri dish at that point. And so you may not, depending on how long it's a grow house, you may not see a lot of mold growth, but it's there and it usually penetrates the walls. So to clean up that mold, you basically have to remove the drywall. In some instances, you have to even take out the cabinets and vanities.
Okay, so you can remediate the house and fix it. Like if you're a landlord and you had someone growing marijuana in it, it can be fixed.
It can.
You just have to pretty much take it back to the studs. And
pretty much.
A lot of work. And it's not covered by insurance, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Now, you talked to me earlier about how some landlords are recouping some cost in certain situations. How did they do that when it was a tenant that had done something in the property that caused mold?
When a tenant takes a home and converts it to a grow house, that's vandalism.
Okay.
And so they can file with their insurance company a vandalism claim, not a mold claim, but a vandalism claim, and recover some of their losses. Okay, from that they're going to pay for with the mold remediation because that's going to take a lot. Okay, all right. Let's talk about a meth house. If the tenant converts the house and is cooking meth in the house, how dangerous is that for the next person who moves in? It's very dangerous. How would they know if someone's renting a house out there and they, go to move into the house? How would they know if it had been used for that? A lot of times they just don't know that, you can Google certain addresses, and if there's been a big arrest event, a lot of times you can pick up a news segment on that. Mm-hmm. But really, it's kind of hit and miss. Do you recommend for tenants to get a mold inspection on a house they're going to lease? Yeah, I do. Anybody who wants to live in a house, you don't know if it's got mold. It's just a good idea to have it checked out.
And how much does a mold inspection cost? Under $500, under $1,000?
Yeah, you really start close to $500, and then depending on the amount of testing you do, it goes up from there. You don't have to test every room. Usually the inspector looks for signs of water penetration or repairs that could have been to cover up water penetration. Mm-hmm. And then, the number of tests is up to the client. We just share what we think could be a potential site, and then the client decides.
So when meth is cooked in a house, what does that do? Is it still the humidity, or is it the chemicals? What is the issue then?
Well, there is a high humidity condition, so they are growing mold in that environment, but they're also dispersing harmful chemicals that absorb into the drywall, and those chemicals they don't go away.
Okay, and the high humidity is an issue really for any homeowner, and anybody can have a humidity issue wherever they live, apartment, house, whether it's a rental or not. So anybody could really get a mold inspection, right?
Anybody can get a mold inspection. One thing that we recommend to guard against high humidity conditions is get a humidity indicator either on your thermostat or a freestanding unit that you can put on the table. Monitor the humidity in your home, because if you're getting up to 60 or 65%, you're in a danger zone there, and it's just critical because everything's contaminated and when mold grows in that circumstance.
Mm-hmm. Now, some investors out there aren't buying houses and putting tenants in, and some of them, buy shopping centers and put stores in them. What happens to those buildings when they're, especially in Houston when it gets so hot, what happens to those buildings when they don't have electricity in them for a long time?
Well, the humidity builds. And if they're carpeted, mold grows in the carpet, you can have pretty significant issues in those environments as well. And
just taking a little Clorox water and washing the walls, it's not going to do it?
Not really.
I know you've heard people say they do that.
Often.
So that's not going to take care of all the issues.
No, it's not. I mean, it can help. If you just have a bit of mold on the walls, you can wipe that off, but you can't wipe it off the carpet. So the carpet, usually in commercial structures where we find issues, that are associated with high humidity, is in carpeting. But most of the time, those are pretty mild cases. On occasion, we see some severely molded commercial facilities as well.
Now, when you have things, when you're living in a house and you suspect mold and you have it tested, let's say, you've got your clothes and your upholstered furniture and toys and all that stuff. Do you really have to get rid of all of it to prevent from bringing it back into the house once it's remediated, or can that stuff be cleaned?
It can be cleaned. Most of it can be cleaned. Okay. Washing or dry cleaning of clothes. Depending on how severe the situation is, you may or may not want to bring stuffed toys back in the house, like with fabric-covered stuffed animals, that kind of thing. I would like to always see those washed. But any of the hard surface items can be cleaned. For people that are having to do a cleanup on their own, I recommend that they take the stuff outside and clean it. Mm-hmm. Of course, always wear personal protection equipment like a respirator, because you don't know how much you're being exposed to.
Do most houses have a little bit of mold in them?
Yes. All houses have a little bit of mold.
All houses have mold. Okay, good. That's good, because, that's good, because everybody wants to be guaranteed they don't have mold. So we just going to guarantee them they all have mold.
They all have a little.
So how do you know if it's dangerous or not?
Well, it's higher levels. The greater your exposure, the more it affects your immune system. So if you have a high-level exposure, it's moving your immune system down. And then when your immune system fails, and a lot of people have immune deficiency issues anyway, that's when it really becomes dangerous.
When you test, do you have to actually cut into the drywall, cut into the baseboards to test?
No.
Okay. So there's no damage to the property to have it tested.
You can do non-destructive testing that's very, very effective and accurate.
All right, great. We appreciate it. Linda Lauver with AQ Testing Services. Linda, if people out there listening want to have their house tested for mold, how can they reach you?
713-305-2719, or we have a website, aqtestingservices.com.
All right. Very good. aqtestingservices.com. All right. We'll be right back with more on mold, meth, and marijuana here on Houston Real Estate Radio after a word from our sponsors.